Hi, welcome to Galt-Works. My name's John, and if you subscribe to the channel because some of the army stuff or some of the libertarian stuff, this video is probably going to make you very happy. If you're here because of more of the feel-good stuff like the Street Barbers or Shower Up or some of the other great charities I've covered, sorry, this video might be a little bit upsetting because we're talking about politics and guns. Last weekend, Super Bowl 53 was played in Atlanta, and where a lot of media shows up, a lot of protesters will show up too. And down there covering some of the protests was News to Share with Ford Fisher and Sarah Shoemaker. Going through some of the amazing pictures that Sarah took caused me to reach out to Ford and license these pictures for use in this video. And in this video, I want to cover three main things. The first is, don't be a dick. The second is, think about what the symbols you're marching with mean, and mean to other people, not just your group. And then the third one is, and the clickbait that I used, that I named this video after, is if you're going to carry your weapon in public, make sure you're doing it in a safe manner. I saw a number of things that really stood out that really just need to be addressed, and I'm not advocating for people to go to protests armed. All I'm simply saying is that if you do make the decision as an individual to carry your weapon, you owe it not only to yourself, but also for the innocent bystanders around the protest to carry it in a safe manner. That is part of the responsibilities that come with the right and the privilege of gun ownership. Also, no matter what I say here, you need to ensure that you're following all state and local laws as far as firearms possession, carry, and making sure that you're doing it in a legal manner. Because if you're at a protest and you're doing something illegal, that's going to lead to an altercation with a police officer, and it has a potential to escalate very quickly. I would like to thank Ford for allowing me to use these photos. Please check out his Patreon, link in the description. And he's currently in France covering some of the Yellow Vest protests and doing a lot of in-depth reporting that you won't see on other places. So one of the big things that stuck out to me when I was looking through some of these amazing photos was this guy giving Sarah the finger. Now here's someone who decided to get dressed up and come to a protest that was happening in Atlanta on Super Bowl weekend because there was so much media in town. This is the most widely covered football game of the year and one of the largest media events of the year. They even turned 2 sections of seats into a temporary press box just to accommodate all the media that comes to town. And that's why a lot of protesters come to whatever city the Super Bowl's hosted in. That's a huge reason why this weekend was picked for the Stone Mountain rally for the protest and the counter-protest. I mean, these are the types of independent journalists you want covering your event. In this photo that Sarah took of the Antifa people as part of their victory celebration burning their KKK/Nazi/Confederate effigy, you can actually see Ford on the ground trying to get better footage. And if you look at the angle that this photo was taken, you can actually see Sarah was on the ground to try to make your effigy look that much more dramatic. These are not the people that you should try to be giving the finger to. But this was just one guy. It doesn't necessarily represent the entire protest, but it's not an image that's helpful if you're trying to get something changed. There were some good signs and there were some bad signs involved in this protest. One of the best ones was this one that says, "Flower power beats racist cowards." Not only is it an effective use of the term racist, and it represents a lot of great things about this march because the white supremacists didn't show up, and it turned into a really good chant if you watch some of the video footage that Ford has on the News to Share website. And this is a unifying message. This is something that if I saw this sign and I had no idea what the protest was about, I would be more willing to ask questions and to try to find out more, because it's something that I could probably believe in as someone who cares about individual rights. But where you really lose me are the communist flags that are flying all around this and that people were carrying all over the protest. Now, I'm a free speech absolutist, and I'm not calling for the Soviet flag to be banned, because it actually kind of works as an indicator to let me know some of the other beliefs you may or may not have. But at the same time, you're alienating people who you might be able to bring around to your side. This person who's carrying this flag, they might watch another rally and might be offended if someone was carrying a Confederate battle flag because that represents the dark time of the Confederacy. Well, the same feelings that you might have about that flag, a ton of people have about the Soviet flag. And when you're carrying the Soviet flag, that lets people know that you probably need to do some more reading in history. So think about the symbols that you're carrying when you're protesting. Here's another great sign. It says Atlanta United Against Hate. And this is great because it sends a positive message, as well as it's also the name of the professional soccer club that just started playing in Atlanta the past few years. This is something good. It's something that, once again, if I was walking by, I might start asking more questions and to see if I might agree with whatever cause you're trying to support. Now here's another sign that starts off well but goes sideways quickly in my mind. It says Sandblast Stone Mountain, which is the point of this protest. You want Stone Mountain removed, which is a Confederate monument that has been carved into the side of a mountain. But where I think it crosses the line is when you add in the "fuck Robert E. Lee." I know a number of people that are proud of their Southern heritage and their relatives that served and possibly died in the Civil War. They aren't necessarily racist, they're just thinking about their family member, and they want to make sure that their family member's memory is honored. Now, those are the people that you're going to try to want to win over if you want these monuments removed from public land or moved to private land or just destroyed, whatever your eventual solution is. But if you start alienating people who aren't racist and just think about the relative they lost and not necessarily the policies of the Confederacy, you're not going to be having a productive discussion. Now, I know the title was a little bit clickbaiting and probably people are expecting me to truly lay into these guys and point out every flaw. I'm going to try to stick with my own point from earlier in the video and not be a dick. I'm going to keep my comments limited to the major things that I saw, and these would be corrections that I would make on any soldier, wouldn't even have to be one of my own, if I saw them in a combat theater or even just in training. I know there's a lot of other things that you could point out, and there's a lot of places where you can go debate what specific kit they're carrying. Go take those arguments to SSD or some other forum. Let's briefly review the 4 rules of firearm safety. 1, treat every weapon like it's loaded. 2, never point your weapon at anything you're not willing to destroy. This is something that is the main reason why I made this video, because there are a lot of protesters and their armed security that had no effective way to aim their weapon, so they couldn't be sure what they were actually pointing their weapon at. 3, keep your finger off the trigger until you're ready to engage. Overall, most of the security element for this protest did a pretty good job of this. I will point out one case where this didn't happen. 4, ensure positive identification of your target and its surroundings. How can you do that if you can't effectively aim? Now, if some of the people I talked about do see this video, I hope they understand that this is really coming from a place of wanting to not only ensure their own safety, but really the safety of the bystanders. What's forgotten a lot when people talk about the Kent State incident is out of the 4 college students that were killed, 2 of them were innocent bystanders. And if you can't effectively aim, your chances of actually shooting an innocent bystander just go up through the roof. It's not being a responsible gun owner. It's not being a responsible citizen that made the decision to carry their weapon out of their house and into public. Now, I've decided to obscure the faces of the individual protesters that I will be critiquing. Now, part of that is I don't want personal attacks against these protesters. If you want to see the unedited versions of these photos, please check out the News to Share link in the description of this video. Sarah took some great shots, and I think they're well worth your time to look at, and you can check out some great video that Ford shot. I would ask that you keep the comment section civil and relative to that topic, or either civil discourse. But this is the internet, so I'm pretty sure that's not going to happen. So with that being said, let's get down to why you're watching me ramble and the clickbait I used to get you here. Our first protester is doing something that is extremely important, and I want to highlight some good. If you're heading to a situation where you think you might use your weapon, be prepared for medical treatment as well. You can see she's equipped herself as a medic. You can see from the red cross on her body armor, this is a good and internationally recognized as a symbol for a medic. The other approved symbol is the red crescent, but for identifying yourself as a medic in the US, the Red Cross is the more widely recognized symbol and probably the better choice to ensure that law enforcement and other first responders recognize you as a medic. One of the things that I will criticize about the patch is that it is small and it's also right next to a red bandana. The reason why the Red Cross and the Red Crescent are red is the color that your eye is drawn to. It's the same reason stoplights are red. Having a much larger piece of red cloth next to a patch you are hoping to use to identify yourself as a medic as other first responders is probably not the best idea. What I'm assuming is a trauma pouch is mounted on her right side, which looks to be her dominant hand. So that means that if she's going to reach for medical supplies to treat someone, she will be reaching with her right hand, and that's more of a reflexive action, and that's a good thing. She has what looks to be a cat tourniquet. These things are lifesavers, and I even have some friends that are only still alive today because of the timely application of these. An important part that is missed by even some soldiers is that her extra magazines are mounted so she can reload with her non-dominant hand. Her magazines are also loaded in the pouches with the bullets down to minimize dirt or other debris entering the magazines, or if a bullet does come out, it's contained inside the pouch. She chose to go with the Magpul P-Mags with a transparent window in them so you can see how fully loaded the magazines are. Quality magazine choice is essential. The leading cause of malfunction in the M16 series of weapons is the magazine. Yes, internet heroes, I know it's an AR-15, more specifically an M&P-15 made by Smith & Wesson. Have fun tracking down the specific model number. No one cares besides you. She has a sling for her weapon, which is essential if she has to transition from a role of providing security to a role of providing first aid to injured people on the scene. She's carrying her rifle in a safe manner with the muzzle pointed down. Her hands are on her weapon, but she does not have her finger on the trigger. She has a hydration carrier, and the drinking tube is routed on her non-dominant side. The straps are routed through the cable management pouches on the vest to keep everything contained and not slip down and constrict her arms. Don't recognize the vest off the top of my head, but I'm sure someone out there on the internet can identify it. I also didn't get a good look to see the true depth of the vest and if there are any ballistic plates in it or soft armor. She has electronic hearing protection on, which is good for maintaining situational awareness. The microphones on the outside will pick up ambient noise and play them to your ear, but then automatically cut out when a shot is fired or something happens. Overall, at my initial first glance, I would assume that this person was very well prepared and able to perform their duties and probably had some level of military or law enforcement training. And then the photographer in me overexposed the picture, and because I thought I saw something a little bit off. Her rear sights are down. They're in the configuration that's designed for them to stay out of the way when you have a primary optic on your weapon. Now we're just going to briefly talk about sighting. Yes, internet gun community, I know this is not a complete firearm, it's only an upper receiver group. But this upper receiver group has two separate sighting systems. You have a primary reflex optic, and then there are the backup iron sights. In order for the secondary sighting system to work, you need both a front point of aim and a rear point of aim. If the rear point of aim is down and you only have this front point of aim, you're not going to be able to aim your weapon effectively. Yes, internet heroes, I know there are alternate ways of aiming your weapon, either through intrinsic aim or just using your front sight post, but I'm pretty sure her level of training, or really anyone's level of training, is at the point where you should be using that in a public crowd. Now cool, she might have been playing with it while waiting, or something might have bumped it down. There are a number of reasons her sights could possibly be down. None of them are good if she's supposed to be providing armed security. The big issue for me is that her primary aiming system is not in a deployed manner. She can't effectively engage something that's a threat to the protesters. This is the picture that led me to truly examine the rest in detail, because I realized how much of a risk she actually was to the general public. If you make the decision to carry a weapon in public, you need to have the personal responsibility to ensure that you can effectively use it. One of the most important things about effectively using a weapon is being able to aim your weapon. Now, this guy seems to have decided to just go as your standard security. He has electronic hearing protection on, as discussed before. He has a pistol as a backup weapon that looks to have a laser sight mounted on the grip. Question, the useful of this of those, but that's a different discussion. It has a holster that has a retention feature built in, so if he has to move around, it won't fall out. A retention feature that is no longer used by a number of law enforcement departments, but still something to keep it from falling out in case he has to move. The holster's not the point of this video. He has what I'm assuming is a medical pouch on his right side. I can't really tell if he has extra magazines on the pouches on his vest. I believe it might be a Lancer magazine loaded into his weapon. He has his weapon carried in a safe direction, and he's following the third rule of firearm safety. His finger is off the trigger. In this picture, you can get a better view of the sling. He has a sling, and from what I can see, it looks to be the Viking Tactics 2-point sling. There are many positive points to having a good sling. If he must transition to his pistol, his weapon will remain attached to his body. Or if someone's trying to grab it from him, it will help him in retaining it. If he has to do any number of tasks that require two hands, he doesn't have to worry about dropping his weapon. A good sling is one of the most important weapons accessories you can have. Things were looking pretty good until I got a closer look at his weapon. His scope covers are down. It looks like he has an aim point or some type of close copy to that. Now with the scope covers down, you can't see through the optic. Even if only one of them's down, you can't see through. I'm also willing to make the assumption that if the scope covers are down, the scope's probably not turned on. And with his sights folded down as well, he doesn't have an effective way to aim his weapon. So instead of being able to rapidly react to a threat and engage with well-aimed shots, he either has to put his optic into operation, or he might just start pulling the trigger. This creates the distinct possibility of shooting an innocent bystander or multiple innocent bystanders. There are two great pictures of this next protester, and I think if you're going to open carry at a protest, this is one of the better ways to do it. This individual has a flower in the barrel of his shotgun. This image makes people think of the flower power photograph of the protest during the Vietnam War. This photograph was taken by Bernie Boston and nominated for the Pulitzer Prize. This was a time when our country was also deeply divided. If you're going to open carry at an event, this is something that gets people to think a little bit more. It broadcasts that you are not looking for a fight, but you are prepared to defend yourself and fellow protesters. Sarah, these are some amazing shots, and I'm not going to butcher them. I'm going to talk a little bit about basic physics. Now, the very short and abbreviated version of how a firearm works is that when a trigger is pulled, the chemical potential energy within a bullet is turned into fire and then gas and then pressure. Now, if you jam something in the barrel of your gun and the pressure that's building to propel that bullet down the barrel of the gun prevents that bullet from exiting the gun, that pressure continues to build and can lead to the barrel actually exploding and injuring yourself and others around you. One of the most important things to check if you are going to be carrying your weapon in a place that you think you're going to use it is make sure that there's nothing obstructing the barrel. So for as powerful as an image that this protester conveyed, it's probably not a good idea to put something in the barrel. Yes, I know it's a shotgun and those are just flowers, but general rule of thumb, wouldn't advise it. Now, this is the picture that really made me think that what some of these people were doing was cosplay with weapons in public, and that's never a good thing. To the average person, this looks like an armed professional that's ready to use their weapon to defend the group. He's doing some things right. He's carrying his weapon in a safe manner. He's following the third rule and has his finger off the trigger. His weapon is pointing in a safe direction. He has a sling. His iron sights are deployed, so that's a good start. He has a rifle made by F&H, who's provided weapons to the U.S. military for years. He has what looks like to be an aim point, red dot sight, or some close copy. But the real reason why I'm calling him a cosplayer is it looks like he's wearing what most people would classify as body armor, or I would call a plate carrier. Body armor that's designed to use ballistic plates to stop rifle rounds. But if you know what to look for, you also notice that this is a $50 plate carrier and there's no armor inside. The most basic explanation of how ballistic plates work is they work by spreading the kinetic energy of a bullet out over the entire surface of the plate. Now, there are two types of ballistic plates. They're standalone and non-standalone. With non-standalone ballistic plates, you still need some type of Kevlar backing material. With non-standalone ballistic plates, they're typically ceramic. When the bullet impacts them, in order to prevent penetration into your body, the plate shatters. Sometimes fragments come out the back end, where you have the Kevlar backing behind it to try to prevent those fragments from penetrating your body, which is the reason why you wear body armor, is to keep objects from penetrating your body. If you look at this picture, you can actually see his shirt through the holes that are intentionally cut into his body armor to mount additional patches to. I did a little bit more research and I found out that the plate carrier he's wearing is actually available for $50 through a store that I wouldn't necessarily trust. By manufacturer, I wouldn't trust that much either. Good kit costs money. I'm not going to go into the specifics of which brands are better than other ones. That's not the point of this video. Take that discussion to SSD. But the danger comes from, to the untrained eye, it looks like he is an armed, professionally trained and equipped person there to provide security. You're giving a false sense of security to the other individuals at the protest with you. Now we're actually going to talk about two individuals in this picture. The first one looks like he's carrying a Mossberg 500 series shotgun that seems to be in good condition. The issue that I have is he's violating the third rule of firearm safety. His finger is wrapped around the trigger. The safety's on, but as anyone who's been around firearms knows, safeties can fail. The shotgun only has a single front sight for aiming. This is known as a bead sight. Not the most accurate aiming method, and therefore not really a good idea to take out in the public, but at least the weapon is pointed at the ground and in a safe direction. I'm also hoping he's carrying with an empty chamber, so he has the opportunity to use the racking action and sound of a shotgun to de-escalate any potential confrontations. Not the best method, but it's been shown to work over the years. He's wearing a modified BDU top in a style that was popular with some SOCOM units in the 90s and early 2000s. I'm not sure if that was issue or he bought at a surplus store. Who knows? I'm not sure what's in his backpack. It's not a tactical backpack I recognize. I'm not going to make any judgment on that. But to me, the important part of this photo is someone I almost missed. Yes, I get that he's a little bit blurry. He's not the subject of the photo. It's a little bit of artistic photography. This guy came prepared and dressed as a medic. He has some type of tactical gear to hold his supplies and might even be body armor. I don't have the best look at it, but the important thing is he has multiple red crosses on his kit. I discussed in the first review how that's a good idea if you have medical training and plan on providing aid to those that are injured. His crosses are also very large and in multiple places. I'm not exactly sure what those white and red tubes in his equipment are. I asked a paramedic friend. She thinks that they might be a civilian version of the cat tourniquet as discussed earlier. He also has another large cross on his helmet. If you rewatch Black Hawk Down, you saw some of the Delta guys were wearing skateboard helmets. This is because they were worried about getting knocked in the head when things started happening. If you're trying to protect yourself at a protest, skateboarding helmet's probably a good call, and he has a large red cross marked on it. The multiple large red crosses ensure that he will hopefully be identified to first responders as someone there to provide medical aid and not just as another agitator. Now at first I was a little judgy of his leather coat, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized that this was a good move. Not the best for breathability, but there are a reason motorcycle riders still wear leather, and prior to that it was used as armor. It was probably something he already had, it's slash resistant and moves relatively well. Overall, for someone who's wanting to provide aid to fellow protesters, this is probably a better path than the first lady we talked about. Wear enough kit to protect yourself, but also make sure you have yourself clearly marked. My final kit review will be of this guy. Now I can't see the important parts of his weapon, but from the video that I did watch that's on the News to Share website, you can see that he carries it in a safe manner. And from some of the images in the video, I think this is an LBT harness, and a number of other indicators make me think that this person might actually be a veteran out there who has some type of military training. I do laugh a little bit at the Oakley gloves and how Antifa keeps loving to talk about punching Nazis in the face. I'm sure that buys him some street credit. But in the videos, he's carrying himself in a professional manner, and it looks like he's prepared to respond to any potential threats. The reason why I spent the weekend ranting into my camera and then editing it down into hopefully something people will watch and ideally will make it back to some of these protesters is that I saw some things that were genuinely unsafe. I'm not saying that protesters need to have armed security. I would love it if we got back to a point where people didn't feel the need to have armed security at their protests. But if you do make the decision to carry your weapon into public, I wanted to make sure that some very unsafe practices were stopped. Now, in the spirit of honesty and honest discourse, and for anyone who might try to potentially accuse me of stolen valor, yeah, on my Iraq deployment I was a platoon leader the entire time. When I went to Afghanistan, I was on staff the entire time. Sometimes that's just how the cookie crumbles. I, fortunately, never had to fire my own weapon at another human. Now, I have used my weapon to either escalate or de-escalate situations, and I've spent thousands of hours training to make sure that I was as proficient as possible with my weapon, and that my equipment was set up to allow me to perform my duties in the most efficient manners possible. Now, for the people who are upset that I'm talking about firearms, this right here is nothing more than a piece of metal and plastic. It has no intentions, either good or bad. It has no inherent good or bad. What matters more is the person holding it, what's up here and what's in here. What I would really hope, rather than people watching this video and maybe making their next protest a little safer or a little bit more appealing to more people, is that people try to do some good. Rather than trying to organize the next best protest to force your ideas on someone else, go find some groups that are actually helping people. If you're in the Nashville area, head down to War Memorial Plaza on Monday night. There's some amazing charities that are helping out some people who are right now going through a dark time in their life. You can have a real and actual impact on someone's life rather than worrying about monuments to a conflict that was fought over 150 years ago, while carrying a flag that represents a very oppressive regime. Go find someone, go do some good. As I can tell you, on every Monday night, there are people from all over the political spectrum that come together to try to help out some of our neighbors most in need. And there are socialists out there, there's libertarians like myself, there's your Tea Party folks, your normal Republicans, and your normal Democrats. None of that matters. But what really does matter is the positive changes and the hope that people provide to fellow humans who need a helping hand at this point. Now, I also recognize that I'm not perfect. I said at the beginning of this video that I was trying not to be a dick, and I only called one person a dick in this video. At the same time, he's giving the finger to a friend of mine. So, kinda earned that one. Once again, I would like to thank Ford Fisher for licensing these photos to me. Thank you, Sarah, for capturing them. Please check out the links in the description to support both of them, as well as there's ways to support myself and other people. Thank you for watching. I know this has been a little bit ranty and maybe might seem a little bit lectury, but this is a topic that I feel that's very important and needed to be addressed in a timely manner.